Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of the Data Leadership Podcast. Today I'm joined by Stephanie Wong from ITV. She actually deals with AI, data, product strategy for ITV, and we're going to be talking about digital transformation. We're going to be talking about data ethics, and also a little bit about the diversity issue, I suppose, within data and tech as a whole. So as always, let's start with a bit of an introduction to yourself, Stephanie, in terms of how you got into data, your journey so far, bits like that.
Yeah. Really happy to be chatting with you, Rich. Thanks for this. Just quickly being up front from the very start, when we come to speak about diversity, it's a really big topic. So, Richard, we've already discussed, we're not experts, so we're still learning and upskilling in this all too. So, I'm just going to unapologetically just speak about my experience of this all, and chuck in some unnecessary hand gestures alongside. So just warning for those who are viewing this, that's the sort of vibe you're going to be getting today. But yes, so how should I get into data? So I have a psychology background. My education was largely statistics, so lots of research studies, analysing patterns in data, specifically within neuroscience, and the link between the brain and behaviour. But my passion was always kind of future tech and innovation. So my university degree, dissertation was actually on how we're going to eventually get to a point where neuroscientists can visually recreate people's dreams just by looking
Wow.
at
Wow.
I mean, a tad different from what I'm doing now. So which I then went on to doing, which is working in data and AI within digital media. So I guess my career journey could be summarized as filling the gap between the business side and the data side. And as we all know, as data professionals, the data field is becoming increasingly more technical and advanced. So my role has always been largely around breaking down those silos, and championing that big data, in that way finding ways to extract maximum value from it, specifically within industries which are actually disrupted by the digital world. So I started off 10 years ago as sort of a data feed consultant within a startup company, helping clients such as John Lewis, Tesco, Sky, ASOS, those who were transitioning from the traditional retail experience to selling online. And that was kind of supporting and shaping their external data strategy. So how they leverage their inventory just outside of their website. And a big part of that was basically stepping up their digital marketing game. So that was kind of around the time where if you bought a jumper online, that same jumper would then start following you around the internet.
Yeah.
That was around that time.
That strange feeling.
Yeah. And I'd just be shouting, "Come on, M&S, get a better data feed." I mean, they were actually one of our clients, so I shouldn't be saying that. But yeah, so apart from the data strategy side, I'd also work with our software engineers to also build them something. So that would be something to host that data, whether that be a widget to swipe through the products, or actually like a website for them to leverage and share their data assets with their online affiliates. So that's kind of where I started developing my data translatory type role.
Yeah.
Clearly not a decent job title.
It's a really key role, though, isn't it? It's, people speak about it a lot now, and it's common. It's not always easy to find those individuals that can bridge that gap, but it's more common nowadays.
Yeah, and it's really, it's quite a, it's not a kind of formal, this is the data, this is how we educate you. It is more of a change management type role, and so very early on I was acquiring that consultative strategic mindset, so how they can use the data, but also the technical elements of developing innovative digital products for them as well. So since then I've taken kind of both those elements to some incredible long-standing brands during their transformation journey. So from their legacy business models to expand in their online kind of presence. So, you know, in the case of ITV, who are growing their ITV hub to deliver TV digitally, I came into the ITV commercial teams to help them realize the true value from data, with a real focus on understanding their problems as a commercial team. So like you know, like you said, it's really been at the forefront of change, to change that mindset shift to not only how they can, you know, how teams can use the power of data, but also understand the you know, the vast amounts of data put in front of them. You know, like it's disturbingly easy these days to make the numbers just say anything you want. And so, you know, with teams, they might say like, oh, we want AI, machine learning models, and it's like, yes, great, we can do that. Or do you actually just need to be better at interpreting data? You know, better at, you know, calling bullshit on bad biased data out there, you know. Sorry. And I, you know, I strongly believe, and this is quite nerdy, but data literacy, you know, it needs to be a life skill, not just a business skill. And to be, you know, to be frank, I'm not talking about Excel skills here. I'm talking about, you know, translating the, so part of my role is, you know, translating the right use of data across multiple teams, diverse job roles, sometimes opposite business areas as well, so that we're all kind of speaking the same language. And in doing so, bringing them together around a unified goal. So at ITV we have, you know, multiple kind of multiple transformation projects going on across all very diverse business areas. And the only way to truly drive company-wide digital transformation from the inside out is bringing the teams that you work with on that kind of data discovery journey together. So
yeah, definitely. No, it's really important. And I the bit you said about data literacy, you know, I don't know what's going on from maybe an educational point now, but you'd imagine schools, and, you know, it needs to be on the curriculum. It needs to be something that people are, and I think that is happening. I think people with tech as a whole, I think they're doing so much more than we would have done. But you know,
that is very true. That is very true. But it's, you know, understanding those numbers, and with big data, just getting even more, you know, ever growing. There's just tons of reports out there with lots of stats and figures, and it's just about how you interpret that and understand which ones to believe and which ones you can't.
Yeah, exactly that. And how important is, I suppose, diversity within this piece? And I suppose, what do we mean when we say diversity? It's obviously a topic that's pretty big right now. A lot of people talking about it, but what does it actually mean when we're talking about teams and within like a data environment?
Yeah, so you know, like when we talk about diversity and data ethics, you know, it's different from diversity within teams. So I'll go into a little bit about I guess what ITV are doing around data ethics. So when we come to, you know, talking about a full data strategy, you know, it includes things like driving internal values for employees. So what I mentioned about fostering a culture, building self-serve data tools, like using AI to optimize or automate processes, but also building external facing data products for business growth as well. So that can be value to the viewer, so you or me, and our user experience of the ITV hub, but also bringing value to the ITV B2B customers. So that would be typically advertisers, marketing, who are wanting to optimize their ad targeting on hub. You can see where I'm going with this with data analytics now. So you know, we know that TV and video are really effective ways to get brands in front of future customers. We also know that monetization through ads has been particularly hit hard due to, you know, competing digital native platforms, you know, stomping around, being all Facebook and unregulated. So you know, knowing that problem, a lot of what I came to do at ITV is leverage how we grow the hub user data to drive new and innovative ways to kind of make our offering better. So building better products for our advertisers without being creepy and invasive and giving them
fine line.
Yeah. So for example, we're working on a measurement solution right now where we can reveal things, how ads have an impact on consumer purchases in a privacy safe way. But I find that, with the growth of big data and the sophistication of AI, digital platforms on the whole are becoming more reliant on machine learning algorithms to build data products and ultimately predict decisions. And so when we're using algorithms to personalize ads or content, which do affect people's experience of the world, especially if they're spending much more time in front of a screen, it becomes increasingly clear that as data professionals, we need to address the problem that predictive algorithms are not inherently fair. They pick out patterns which may or may not reflect society's existing structural bias and inequality, and they predict those patterns, and so they repeat the past and therefore exacerbate them. And so we need to scrutinize these and remove those broken bits of our current society. And so what I mean by that in practice is that if we go designing a model to predict high value audiences for advertisers, we may need to remove all of the sensitive data such as gender, even if that sacrifices your model accuracy, because otherwise you could end up excluding females. And we know that there is a massive gender inequality. So what we're doing at ITV is we're making sure that we're realizing that, undertaking the steps to ensure our ethical responsibility, and that our models are transparent, unbiased, explainable, not a black box. And some quick advice I would give to other companies wanting to explore this space is, if you're one step ahead and you're defining what data integrity looks like and actually steering the direction of your industry towards that trust and transparency, your brand will win. And that's where I see huge opportunity in this. And I've experienced it in the past as well, like working for the FT. There is huge benefit. So be transparent in what you're doing, then shout about it, get it audited for fairness, shout about that too, and then make a public pledge to your customers and consumers that the data that you're using is what you say it is, and that you're correcting for any biases, even at the expense of campaign efficiency or profit. Because there is an obvious gap between ethics and current regulation, but that regulation will catch up. So just stay ahead of the curve really, and limit your risk early. Ideally before you suffer from ethical failure, but be open that it is an ongoing learning. So how we got to that point is, at ITV we use design thinking to drive our innovation projects. And as part of that, it's all about bringing new ideas to the table, or even just seeing things in a new light. And now that cannot be done if everyone in tech and data all have the same experiences and look the same. We have to have diverse people in the room contributing to those decisions. Otherwise, we're just innovating, with the lights off, and that's just not fun or ethical. When we talk about a diverse workforce, we're talking about race, background, class, ethnicity, disability, neurodiversity, even personality differences as well. We have to have a diverse team in the room when we make those decisions, like what a model will do and predict. And even when we talk about sensitive data, that can also include things like postcode, which is often used as a proxy for race and background and class.
Oh, right.
Yeah, exactly. So within all of those categories, gender inequality is present across every single one of those groups. And we need to get away from this whole "it's changing" attitude. We'll get there eventually, because I don't really think you can say that when there are women still out there, they're suffering.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it needs to happen sooner. But yeah, a really good point when you're doing all this great stuff with data, this clever machine learning algorithms, all this stuff. So important that the base behind that is coming from the right place, you know, different views, different race, religion, all that stuff, different understanding, bringing to the table, because, you know, that should be reflective of what, you know, the people out there. So yeah, a really important thing. And what I suppose, what barriers do you feel we face when we're trying to create diverse teams and trying to promote diversity?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think that there's, you know, that it's a question we can kind of all ask ourselves, really. What can we do? What can we do more? What more can we do, rather? I guess the barriers would be a lot around, you know, awareness of this, and a lot in terms of like the recruitment as well. So, you know, I would encourage everyone to, on their own, to do their own research. You know, there's definitely a lot of women's awareness campaigns. You know, women in data. That there's some incredible companies out there who are raising awareness around this all, and you know, I think it's all about making an effort to educate yourself more than anything around this, because a lot of the, you know, the barriers that tend to be cultural barriers, you know, that obviously the companies could do more around this, around recruitment, and but it's actually the cultural side, which I think is a huge barrier here. So there's tons of excellent literature out there. You know, we're not the experts in this. I would encourage everyone to do their own research first and foremost, because this topic is only going to grow. And, you know, as they say, if you don't keep up with the world, you're only going to be left behind. But, you know, in terms of, I guess, businesses, and what businesses can do to alleviate that. You know, I'm definitely not an expert here. I actually bounce that question back to you, and your thoughts about diversity in the recruitment aspect. You know, what's been your experience?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think if I was to, you know, I've been doing this 7 years or so now, in recruitment, and when we look back at the beginning, you know, this just wasn't a conversation that people were having, and I think we're in quite a unique position as recruiters, that we work with a whole wide range of businesses, we work with a whole wide range of people, and we essentially connect those together. And I think if you know, a true recruiter, you're adding so much more value than simply putting people in jobs, and you're a true partner to businesses, a source of information. And I think looking back on it, probably didn't do enough early on to maybe identify whether it's discrimination or people just simply not doing enough to promote diversity in their teams, whether that was a lack of understanding, whether it was a lack of confidence or experience, feeling like it's maybe not your place to say it. I know I'm not alone in that sometimes it's just easier not to say something and not speak up. And I think the difference now is it's a conversation for everyone. You know, all the businesses that we work with in some way or another are trying to do their bit with diversity. I think in reality, some are doing it much better than others. I think some are genuinely promoting diversity, basically admitting, you know, we don't know everything. This is the situation we're in. We're trying to get better. Tell us how we can get better. Let's work with people to find out how we can improve. And they're the great organizations that are putting in, you know, lots into place during their recruitment process to ensure that they reach the right people, they attract the right people, they give the right opportunity to all people. And one key example of that would be one of the clients I work with have a portal where you submit a CV, it anonymizes that CV, so they've got no way of understanding whether that individual is, you know, female, male, you know, whatever ethnic background they're from, anything like that. And that's obviously one step to anonymize that process and try and limit that bias. Of course, you're not going to get rid of it completely, but it's taking the right step. Probably on the flip side of that, we've got companies that simply put a little bit of text on the bottom of an advert saying that they, they encourage applicants from all different backgrounds. I mean, that's pretty much, there's nothing wrong with it, but it's pretty much the bare minimum you could do. And I think they maybe see it as a tick box exercise, but the ones that truly see it as, okay, we need a diverse team because it will mean we are more successful as a business, will attract the right people to the business. There's an article I'll post in the comments after this, actually, that will, just show some key stats around this. And it's just fact that the businesses that are doing their part to make sure they've got diverse teams that are going on and being more successful. They're reacting to things in the market quicker. They're reaching different groups and people are bringing different views to the table. And that's all what it's really about. But I think I'm, over time, and especially, in preparation for this chat, realize how much more we can all do. And especially as recruiters. And I think we're in, like I said, that unique position where actually we can partner with businesses, maybe call out signs where businesses aren't doing enough, but also not just call it out. Okay, how can we share experiences and information from other businesses that are doing things well? What's working, what's not working? And the whole premise being that, there's always more to do and no one's doing it perfectly. So it's an interesting one to think about.
No, absolutely. You do see lots of kind of new standards coming out, that whole box ticking exercise. But, if we as individuals aren't passionate about the cause, we haven't done our reading, we don't truly know what it means to be diverse and why, then it isn't, we're never going to get real change. You're going to have lots of job applications which are still just doing the bare minimum. But that's why I say, like you said, the more we talk about it, more shout about our stories and good practices and share that, that is what innovative thinking is all about. And it's almost that lack of thinking otherwise, and you're not having someone in the room to say we should be doing this, that that's wrong, and that's due to lack of diversity.
Yeah, exactly that. And I think one of the key statistics that I read about was something like 56% of all employees think that their businesses can do more to promote diversity, which, I mean, that's just huge, isn't it? It's just a massive flag that, not enough's being done. There's still so much more to do. And if your employees are the ones that are feeling that way, then it's a big sign that you need to do more, and maybe leaders within that organization need to identify that. And I know on the whole, most people are, but there's still so much more to do. I mean, if you're an employee in an organization and you do feel that way, I suppose, what do you do? How's best to actually go about that?
Yeah, so that you just talked about, like, the recruitment aspect of how we get diverse people into the business, but we know that I think it's 26% of women represent the tech workforce, and what's worrying is that hasn't changed over the last decade, and only 3% of C-suite data roles are women. So we know that women are not only not entering the workforce, but if they do, they leave. So that whole when people actually come into the business, the team culture really needs to ramp up in terms of their diversity and inclusion plan of action, to not only apply at the recruitment stage, so the way that we even word job descriptions, to actually reshaping the systems that we embed for those individuals, and how we create that belonging for everyone that we're bringing into the room. So making the workplace an equal environment for us all to be in, all the way up to the senior level. You know, time and time again, I've seen how even the thought of returning to work after maternity, you know, even before someone is pregnant, it puts people off. Women aiming higher in the workplace. I've seen women feel guilty and having to quietly sneak out the office early for childcare, and you know, maternity returners programs just not being very effective in terms of really bringing them back after that maternity period. So if all of us start, you know, putting a little bit more thought into that, supporting maternity returners programs, or, you know, things like eliminating evening networking, boys clubs, businesses on the golf course, you know, all of that stuff we need to rethink. And otherwise we will continue to have a lack of strong, diverse female leadership in the boardroom, but also really visible role models for our girls. You know, I can't tell you how important it is for our girls to see, you know, what they want to be when they grow up, and even me as a, you know, Chinese lady in leadership, you have no idea how much of an impact that has unconsciously to actually just visualize what success could look like. So it makes a huge difference having women enter the workforce and then stay there into those leadership roles.
Yeah, it's so important. And, you know, I've got a little girl coming up to 2 years old now, but, you know, this needs to move much quicker if it's going to give her the right opportunities for whatever she wants to go and do. So, you know, the more that can be done now, the better, really. But I suppose a question that sort of I was thinking about before, of like how to phrase it, how do I go about this, probably identifies a problem there and then. But, you know, as a sort of Chinese female in data, you know, what I was going to say, sort of what restrictions, what barriers have you faced personally? What have your experiences been? But like I say, actually hesitating about how to phrase that is probably a sign that, you know, I think people are in a similar boat and don't want to offend.
100%. Yeah. And it's because, you know, we don't talk about it. It's purely for the fact, because, you know, that's absolutely okay to say you're a Chinese female in data and tech. That is, you know, there's absolutely nothing wrong about that. But the thing is, like, we do you know, I personally also tiptoe around things like calling people a certain race, because we still see it as a sensitive topic, but we need to start talking about it in order to address some of these challenges that we are facing.
It's a stigma around it, isn't it? It's that stigma. No one wants to say something that's, you know, going to offend, and you know, with social media and stuff like that now, you know, you say one thing and it can blow up. So there's a lot of cautiousness about it, and that's the whole idea of you more people speaking about it will hopefully demystify that.
Yes, absolutely, and acknowledging that we don't live in a perfect world at the moment, so it's not going to be perfect. But we're growing, and we're on that journey of understanding, and yeah. So I'm happy to share my personal, I guess, realization, and it's for me the first time I've told this as well, because I've like you, I've kind of also shied away from this a lot of my life, and so I want to highlight why I'm sharing my story too, if I may. So embarrassingly, I've always been quite, you know, ambitious, bit of an obsessive personality. so if I put my mind on achieving like this great career, I'd be like, let's get this shit done. And another fact about me is, as well, as I've always deliberately avoided all the kind of stereotypical, I guess, female behavior. So I hate talking about typical women subjects, like, you know, I don't know, cooking or clothes or shopping. And I actually, you know, decided a while ago that I did decide that I never wanted to have children. And, you know, I tried so hard to be anti-women as possible, and it started shaping me as a person. And the reason being is because I had unconsciously associated that with affecting my chances of senior leadership in the workplace.
Wow.
And, you know, I knew I had to work on my other skills as well, like my ridiculous hand gestures. But I mean, like, when you intersect that feeling of, you know, that that feeling with also my Chinese Mauritian heritage as well. Traditionally, you know, a woman's place was a homemaker, and when you experience racism and discrimination at an early age on top of that, all you want to do is just fit in within the culture, just on a day-to-day basis. That's all you want to do. And my mum actually said to me, she said she often felt guilty as a parent for not doing the same things as other cultures. And I often used to kind of boast, which is really bad, like, oh, I've never been to China, I don't speak Mandarin or Creole,
Yeah,
which is my
yeah.
parents' first language. And I tried so hard to just reject that background, to say, look, I'm just like you, I'm British. And the only other language I speak is data. That's such a lie. That's a lie. I don't even speak any coding
Yeah.
language. I'm such a failure all around. But no, just trying to be so trying to be like non-women in the workplace. I also was battling this kind of lifelong achievement of trying to be white, which, funny enough, is really hard. And so clearly, I felt I needed to change my personality, and that can be quite draining.
Yeah.
When you're not being authentic and when you feel like you don't belong. And the UK work, you know, the corporate workplace at least, is the culture is not inclusive for us, or, you know, unconscious bias, exclusion, etc., etc. That exacerbates feelings of doubt, which definitely held me back, and at times actually put me off being, you know, ambitious. So we need to acknowledge that, you know, I myself, and I'm sure a lot of other women as well, will have that innate deficiency, sometimes from day one, to not, you know, not only that, but also different women have different experiences as well, because, you know, it can be intersected with race, heritage, social class, sexuality. Many of us across the world are implicitly, if not explicitly, told we don't belong in a Eurocentric, male-dominated workplace. And, you know, when things don't belong, we deem them to be a bit risky. So I'm sharing my story basically to encourage others to learn from my mistakes, and just question your thinking. Because, you know, what if I grew up in different circumstances? You know, would I still be feeling this way? Would I still have these beliefs? And I would encourage others to do the same as well, because, you know, we need to ensure that women acknowledge the true cause of what might actually be holding them back, and share that realization as well.
Yeah, I mean, thanks for sharing that. I mean, it's not great to hear that someone can feel like they need to unidentify with their background, their heritage, the fact that you're a woman, and trying to move away from that and trying to blend in is just like, it's horrible to hear. And unfortunately, like you say, I'm sure it's a really, really common feeling for people. And you know, it should be the complete opposite. It should be that, you know, that side of you coming into maybe an area where most people are, you know, from majorities and stuff like that, then that should be great. We, you know, we need your experiences. We need that. That's great that you're I suppose different to the majority, and that it's just such a shame that you've had those experiences, and hopefully it won't always be that way. But
and, you know, I don't doubt that other people definitely have similar experiences, no matter where you come from. I don't think this feeling of not fitting in is rare as such. But, you know, we just need to acknowledge that most women will have this from day one, in when they step into a you know, stereotypical UK office workforce. But there, you know, there is a happy ending to my story, because that question my thinking, and that is through hearing other stories of diversity issues, and seeing other allies, you know, supporting those stories as well. And that led me to gain a new perspective on motherhood. And, you know, I now don't feel like it is a blocker to a successful career. But, you know, it took some time. And, you know, if we're not talking about it, directly supporting those stories, taking action across all those levels of leadership, then we're actually all part of the problem, really. So yeah, I guess my one takeaway from this is that if everyone just saw themselves as role models, shared their stories, shared how they've supported others, and how they're making a big difference, it made a difference to me. So I would really, really recommend that everyone do that. And I'm hoping that, by sharing my story as well, someone else can relate and also question their thinking as well.
Yeah, I think you summed it up really well there. It's about people sharing experiences. It's about people talking about it. And that's why we wanted to put this together. That's why we wanted to talk about it. So look, I really appreciate your time, Stephanie. I really appreciate you sharing this. And yeah, hopefully we can have a follow-up on this a little bit later down the line. And hopefully a lot of this has been improved upon. But yeah, thanks for your time.
Yeah, you too. It's been great chatting with you.